online. Thank you. And also, yeah, about 10 people in person. Nice to meet you. I'm so happy to see your lovely faces in person again. And the speaker today, we're just talking about his last talk happened in 2020 in the same place, right? Welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah. Today we have CIE's technology seminar. Today it is a hybrid event, which means we are hosting the event here at the E3 venue. And also we are broadcasting on Zoom live. So people who cannot attend in person can watch this online. And also we are recording this, the whole event. So it will be playback on our YouTube channel later. My name is Yan Shu, and I have been a volunteer at the CIE San Francisco Bay Area for 5 years. I'm also the treasurer for this year. Today, I'm hosting this event for our wonderful speaker, Dr. William Cao. But please allow me to say a few things before I hand over the microphone. So first of all, I would like to thank our venue provider, E3. They provide wonderful venue for our event. And E3 has been our great partner for many years. So today I would like also to thank our staff and the volunteers here. We have volunteers here who help with check-in, registration, food preparation, and also with Zoom operation recording, and our video professional here. Our President Jonathan Chiang is also here today. Maybe he would like to say a few words at any moment. Let me start our introduction slides, just a few minutes for you guys. So we are Chinese Institute of Engineers in USA, San Francisco Bay Area chapter. And we have multiple media channels. Here you can find us on Facebook, WeChat, Line, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our CIE newsletter, which is bi-weekly. The QR codes will be shown again in a few slides. So we were established in Cornell University in 1917 by a few of the very early students who came from China, include Zhan Tianyou and Lin Hongxun. So this year, 2022, is our 105th anniversary. Our Bay Area chapter was established in 1979. The object is to serve engineers and scientists and students in San Francisco Bay Area engineering community. The missions of CIE USA SF are to promote technological advancement, networking, and communicating among engineers and scientists, and to promote well-being of engineering community. And in 2019, we celebrate our 40th anniversary. We are very active in holding different various activities and events. We have had seminars, webinars, banquets, and also annual conferences and job promotion talks. Let me say again about our YouTube channel, which is a great place to find our past events, because we videotape most of our past events. So if you're interested in that, please check our YouTube channel. Today, two subgroups are hosting this event. One is Emerging Technology Group, led by Dr. William Cao, also the speaker today, and also Electronic Design Technology Group. And there are three other subgroups under CIESF. So we really value the power of networking. We believe that it is our responsibility to share our knowledge and experience with young students, young professionals, especially in this rapidly changing community in the Bay Area. Ever since pandemic, we have moved most, I would say 99% of our activities online, utilizing Zoom and YouTube live streaming, which has been successful. By all means, our last annual conference was also virtual, and it was quite big. And since this year, we start a more hybrid mode, and we would like to bring more and more events into offline and also hybrid. Okay, here is a sample of all past video recordings from 2020 to 2021. So, sorry, these are not really COVID webinar. It's a bad title. So if you're interested, you can check these videos on our YouTube channel. So notice that these, some of these are were also given by William Cao. And if you search CIESF, you will see our channel on YouTube. And this year, in May this year, we held an in-person annual conference where we had 4 technical seminar sessions in the afternoon, and also a wonderful evening gala event. So in the gala event, more than 300 people attended in person, which was quite impressive. And we are one of the earliest groups and organizations that return to such a big in-person events. Okay. And these are the 4 for that annual conference, for the technical symposium. And Dr. William Cao was the moderator for that program. And by the way, all these are also recorded on YouTube. You may check them out. So finally, let me introduce our speaker today, Dr. William Cao. He received a BSE and MSE and also a PhD from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. He worked in semiconductor and electronic design automation industries for more than 30 years. He has held several senior and executive engineering management positions at Texas Instruments, Xerox, and Cadence Design Systems. He has authored more than 40 technical papers on IC CAD at IEEE journals and conferences. And he holds 8 software and IC design patents. He's also adjunct professor at UCLA Electrical Engineering Department. And he taught courses in computer science and IC design. He's a senior member of IEEE, and he was one of the founding members of IEEE Circuits and Systems Silicon Valley chapter. He currently teaches clean technology and emerging technology course at the University of California, Santa Cruz, Silicon Valley Extension. So he is known for giving many technical talks and seminars in the past years. He's also known as an emerging technology watcher. He's so into every new technology that emerged in these years, which has a very big span, very big territory, including clean technology, renewable energy, big data and data analytics, IoT, smart cities, sensor networks, innovation, virtual and augmented reality, robotics, AI, machine learning, 5G, 3D printing, and satellite communications. So Dr. Kao is a technology watcher, learner, and teacher. So today, we're so honored to have Dr. William Kao here at E3 venue. Please, Dr. William Kao. Full screen. Share this.
Okay, thank you, Yansu, and welcome everybody to the first post-COVID live seminar. So as he was saying, I gave my last talk here around March of 2020. So it's been more than 2.5 years since I gave talk. So as Yansu was giving in my introduction is that I retired around 2009. And since then, I've been labeling myself a technology watcher. That means I keep track of everything that is new. Learner, because I learn everything that I don't know. And through these seminars, I also try to teach some of the knowledge. So that's the last sentence is a technology watcher, learner, and teacher. So welcome to this evening's talk. So let me give you an introduction of what the topic is. There is a company called Gartner Research that every year conducts a survey of all the latest technologies. They poll more than hundreds of companies, and they poll all the technologies that every company is interested in working on. And in August of every year, in the month of August, they publish this publication called the 20 whatever, the year and the emerging technology chart for that year. So I'm happy tonight to be presenting the latest emerging technology chart that just came out last month, okay? So this is the agenda for tonight's talk. I'm going to start by talking about the difference between what is emerging technology versus what is the current hot technology. Okay, so everybody here knows about 5G, about AI, about autonomous cars, about satellite internet. Okay, all of those are current hot technologies. Okay, now I'm going to explain the difference between what those are versus what are the emerging technologies. Okay, and then the thing that started this topic for tonight is the 2022 technology hype chart. Okay, so I'm going to introduce what is a hype chart. Okay, what does a hype chart mean? What's the definition and what it conveys? And then for the rest of the seminar, I'm going to go over the 25 technologies that are in this year's technology chart. I'm going to go over all 25 technologies. So today's talk is not going to be a little bit, it's going to be a little bit different to some of my previous talks where I dive into one particular technology, okay? Tonight's going to be a little bit broader and also a little bit more futuristic, okay? So I'm going to be covering 25 technologies in 1 hour, okay? The other thing is that it's an emerging technology. compared to a current hot technology. So there's going to be differences. And then I'm going to wrap up by giving a summary and a conclusion. So this chart shows about 12. It could be easily be 15. And everything on this chart you should have heard of, okay? Like for the last 10 years, AI has been on the forefront of the new technologies, whether it's natural language processing, voice recognition, and so on. Vehicle automation, everybody have heard about driverless cars, right? And also about drones. Drones are driverless planes, right? And so on. 5G. So 5G, I have given also a talk on most of these topics that you see on the screen. I've given talks about in the last several years. And some of them are actually captured in YouTube. So if you want to go and listen, they are pretty recent. They're only 2 or 3 years, less than 2 years old. So everything that I gave a talk on those topics are still current today. So everybody heard about blockchain, about cryptocurrencies. It all started with Bitcoin. And right now we talk about the latest hot thing is the NFT, non-fungible tokens, okay? The Internet of Things based on the sensors, okay? Also, the difference between cloud computing, everybody heard about cloud computing. Edge computing is more computing at the edge where the device is, okay? So you don't have to send the information, the data to the cloud and then wait for it to come back. So edge is right there where it is. So for instance, you have a driverless car, you need to have the compute technology right in the car itself. You don't want to send the data to the cloud, wait for the information to come back because by that time, you already ran over somebody, right? 3D printing has been around for at least 10 years. I taught a course in 3D printing at the UC Santa Cruz about 10 years ago. So, and it's still going. And the reason why it's still very hot and new is because even though that the basic principle of 3D printing remains the same, but the materials are changing. So right now you can even make human bones or human organs based on human cells, for example. So instead of using plastic or chocolate or cream, you can use even human cells, and then you can create new things. Everybody has heard about big data, because right now we're sort of like, we used to live in the era of oil, right? So oil was the thing that was really valuable. Right now we're saying we're living in a big data era, because the data that is being collected through our cell phones, through our devices, okay, and through even satellites is so much, is so huge that you have to deal with it. How do you deal with a large volume of data? And then data by itself is useless unless you have some analytics that you can help you analyze the data, help you interpret the data, and make recommendations to you what to do with the data, okay? One of the talks that I just gave recently, I think was this year, was on satellite technologies. So everybody heard about, right now, as a matter of fact, it's very current because in the Russia-Ukraine war, you know that when Russia invaded Ukraine, the first thing they did was to destroy all the communications, the normal channel communications. So the government of Ukraine asked Elon Musk for the latest satellite technology. And actually, right now, if you look at the situation of the war right now, the condition of the war, actually Ukraine is getting ahead because of the communications captured via the satellites, okay? So at the beginning of the war, people thought Russia has a much stronger and larger Air Force. But then they realized that actually throughout the course of the year, of the war through this year, actually what has made the most impact has been the data that's being captured by the satellite. So that's above the airspace, and then below the airspace via the drones. So drones below the airspace and satellites above the flying space is actually what is controlling the world today. Okay. So in satellite technologies, there are at least two or three. One is the GPS. Like for example, you also heard that last year, 2021, China came out with the latest GPS technology. Okay, northern poles and north pole technology, something like that. Okay, instead of using the US GPS system. Internet, satellite communications via internet, and the latest I just described, which is how it's impacting the war. Okay, military. How do you use the satellite data on the military front? Quantum computing has been also around for many, many years because the advantage that quantum computing provides is at least 1,000 to 10,000 fold over the normal traditional computers. Okay, but it requires a lot of cooling technology. So I've also given talks on quantum computing. You can look it up. Right now, the thing that's very hot for the last several years is AR, VR, augmented reality, virtual reality. And right now it's the combination of both. That's called mixed reality, MR. And then that will be continuing for the next 10 years. So metaverse is actually going to be based on AR, VR, and MR. Okay. So for people who are still in the semiconductors, so I left semiconductor field in 2009. But right now it's sort of like it's a rebirth because right now there's a shortage of semiconductor chips, right? So for people in that area, the latest are EUV, extreme ultraviolet that's controlling the manufacturing. So the only company that has significant or established equipment is the Netherlands company AMSL. Okay, and then the next generation semiconductors. That means that semiconductors based not on silicon, okay, but based on future materials. That's called third generation semiconductors. So I've listed a few of those silicon carbide, gallium nitride, zinc oxide, aluminum nitride. So I also gave a talk on the status of semiconductors, even though I left the field. But because the semiconductor field was so hot that last year I decided to refresh my knowledge of semiconductors, and that is actually taped. So for you who are interested, you are welcome to see that talk, all right? So that is current hot technology. Everybody heard about these ones. But tonight, we're not going to be talking about this, okay? We're going to be talking about emerging technologies. So let me sort of define what's the difference between the emerging technologies versus the ones that I just described. The main difference is the maturity, okay? You can compare it this way. Emerging technologies are technologies that are just born, okay? You want to, okay, that's good. So for people who are on Zoom, they don't need to see that. Okay, I don't think they see that anyway. Yes, yeah. Okay, but okay. So I was saying the difference between the technologies as described in the previous slide, which are the current hot technologies. Those are mature. They are like adult. They're already adult. So people already heard about those technologies. They are the topics that currently people are working on. Okay, emerging technologies is like a new baby. Okay, we just heard about it, and they are just still in the childhood stage. So if you were to compare and contrast between the emerging technologies versus the current, is that emerging technologies, they are in the childhood phase. Okay, they still have many years to go and grow. And the hot technologies are the ones that are around us right now, like 5G and AI and so on. So the other definition of that is including emerging technologies is that they're going to be causing significant impact. So it's not just any random technologies that people don't care. The thing with these technologies, people view them that they will make a significant change. So if you're a company that learns about these emerging technologies and you think that your company can benefit out of this, you can be ahead of the competition. Okay, so why people are working on interesting emerging technologies? Because if you are an early adopter, you're going to have significant advantage over your competition. Okay, so tonight I'm going to go over the 25 technologies that Gartner has selected for 2022. But it came out from over 1,000 technologies. So 25 is the final result. The ones that the people, they deem the most significant, okay? But they factor many, many technologies for many, many fields, including biotechnology, IT, manufacturing, business. There are a lot of different fields and everybody has different interests. So if you poll all the companies, over 100 companies, everybody gives you 10 things that they're interested. They're right there. There may be over 1,000 technologies. So the ones that I'll be presenting tonight are the top 25. Okay, the ones that really distill to the most important. And these technologies, it will take them many years to grow, from 2 to 10 years. That's why I use the analogy of a child. Okay, they're just born. They're going to be growing from 2 years to 10 years old, and they become teenagers. Okay, and maybe at some point in time they'll mature. Okay. Okay, so first let me introduce what is a hype chart. So a hype chart looks something like this. Okay, it's like a curve. Okay, and there are 5 different cycles in the hype chart. Okay, you start with the technology trigger. The trigger is what it gets you started, sort of like your starter in your car. Okay, so technology trigger is something significant event. For example, last year, 2021, everybody heard that Facebook changed their name to Metaverse Inc. Okay, so that was a trigger because they said, oh yeah, why did they change the name? What's this thing about Metaverse? I don't know what the Metaverse is. So that's sort of like a trigger. So that was happening in October of last year, 2021, when the company changed the name. So after the trigger, then everybody gets excited. So everybody starts saying, okay, yeah, that's great. I don't want to miss that and so on. So the interest starts picking up and then it reaches a peak. So this is sort of like peaks and valleys, right? So when it reaches the top, it's at the peak, okay? And then after that, then some people realize that maybe they were a little bit disappointed with what they were expecting, okay? And then the thing starts coming down a little bit. So then from the peak, it start going down to a valley, okay? So the valley is the trough of this disillusionment, okay? And however, that thing also doesn't last very long. The people say, well, in the Chinese philosophy, everybody's sort of like a middle, right? Middle of the ground, 中庸. So everybody, some people get very excited, and then some people get very disappointed, okay? And it finally all winds up to be in the middle, okay? So gradually starts coming up, and then it saws, oh, okay, well, maybe it was not promising as everything they thought, but it also is not as bad. And there's always some merit, okay? So this is what they call the slope of enlightenment. People realize what the thing is good for and what are the things that maybe they should not have a lot of expectations. So I don't know how many people here are electrical engineers, okay? So when I was an electrical engineer, so when I study electrical engineering, there are 2 things. One is called the transient analysis. Transient analysis is that when the things go up and down, that means that it's not stable, okay? Up and down, so like peaks and valleys. That's called transient. Transient means it's not permanent, right? And then at the end, you have called the steady state analysis. Steady state analysis is when everything comes down and people realize what the final value of it. So that's what the steady state is. So it's the same thing. The first part of the curve is up and down because things have not settled down yet, okay? And then when it goes at the end, you give it enough time, things will come down. Okay, so it reaches a plateau. So that is what they call is the steady state. All right. Okay. So again, the 5 stages of a hype cycle. Something new started, so it gets triggered, then start ramping up, and everybody's thinking, wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Okay, so everybody's going up, and then it reaches the peak, and then it start like, there's also the law of physics. Everything that goes up must come down, right? So when it reaches the peak, then things start coming down, because really you cannot go up forever. So it needs to stabilize, and then it will come down a little bit. And then it goes into the trough of disillusionment. And then right now, after that, when things come down, it will rebound. It's sort of like stock market as well. The easy way to predict the stock market, what did the stock market did the day before? It fell down by 1,000 points. The following day it's going to go up by at least 50 to 100 points. That's simple physics. Okay, what goes up must come down, and what goes down, it will come up again. Okay, so that's the hype cycle. It looks like that shape. So let me give you a couple examples. So I'm using, first example is big data. So everybody heard about big data, right? So whenever it's the first phase, the technology trigger, people say, wow, big data, that's a big breakthrough, because before big data, we didn't know what to do with all the large volumes. Okay, so big data is a breakthrough. When you're at the technology trigger, that's why you hear people say, oh, big data is a breakthrough. And then when you go to the peak, it says, big data will change everything. Okay, forget everything, just use big data technology. Okay, and then after it comes down into the trough or the valley, people say, well, big data didn't do what I wanted it to do. Actually, I did not get as much return as what I was expecting. So they will say big data isn't that magical after all. Okay. And then when it starts coming up again, they realize what big data is really good for. So the big data is actually useful in these particular examples. It's really useful. Okay, it's not good for everything, but for these 5 areas, it's very useful. Okay, big data. And then at the end, when everything is leveled off, the big data is an ordinary thing. Everybody take it for granted now. Everybody adopt big data, and everybody knows what the big data is good for, and what are the areas where big data is not good for. So that's the end. Okay. So let me give you an example that is more current, because everybody heard about metaverse, right? So right now, metaverse is the hottest thing right now. So if you map the metaverse into a hype cycle, when you are at the trigger and say, oh, this metaverse, that's cool. Why did Facebook change name? Mark Zuckerberg must know something that we don't know. After all, he's a billionaire, right? So say, this could be cool. So that when you're at the technology trigger, say, this could be cool. Okay, when you are reaching at that peak, you say, I don't understand it. Okay, I don't understand what the metaverse and all this jazz about AR and VR and the MR and all that stuff that is virtual. Everything is virtual, So I don't understand it, but I don't want to miss it either. So everybody's going up to the peak, right? And then after a year or so, everybody say, well, at that time people say, well, what's an NFT? Non-fungible token. Okay, so I want to understand what the NFT is. And then they realize, they start reading the newspaper saying, well, not many people start buying NFTs anymore. It's sort of like, remember Bitcoin? When it started, everybody started buying Bitcoin. And then after a while, you say, well, people will start losing money. You say, okay, maybe I should get out of it, right? So the same thing. So with the metaverse, people say, well, what's NFT? A lot of people make money out of NFTs. But then when it comes down, says, well, why isn't people continue to buy NFTs? Okay. When it goes to the slope, you say, we already invested so much money. So like buying Bitcoin. A lot of people say, well, I already bought $10,000 of Bitcoin, whatever. So I might just, well, just stick with it. So that's what happens when you're reaching the slope of enlightenment, okay? And then at the end, do we have to have this meeting in the metaverse? People realize that finally there are certain aspects of the technology that you, as a in general, you have adopted. So for example, right now, before COVID, I barely knew how to use Zoom, right? But after COVID, all the meetings are on Zoom, okay? So the same thing will happen with the metaverse. A lot of the work, inter-office work, a lot of the things that you go for entertainment, and a lot of things will be based on the metaverse. So it'll be a combination of virtual and real. Okay, so that's the two things that are in the metaverse. They coexist. So for people who are just beginning to get into the new stuff, the new digital stuff, is that we have to distinguish. There will be two worlds. One is the planet that we're living on right now. We're right now in Itri's seminar room, okay? That's the physical universe. It's the planet Earth, okay? And then on the side, there's going to be another universe called the metaverse. The metaverse is actually the combination of the physical world and the digital world, okay? The digital world is a virtual world, okay? So the two will coexist, and the combination of both will be called the metaverse, okay? So that's an example. Okay, so this is the chart for tonight. And for people who, by the way, people always ask me, well, can you give me some of your slides? Anybody can send me an email. I'll be glad to send you a subset of the slides for tonight. Okay, I will not be able to send you every single slide. Okay, so that's my own personal IP, because it takes me a lot of time to put together the stuff. Okay, but this is the slide where all the material that is being presented tonight. Actually, you can just downsize it. I don't need to see it until we come back at the end.
I don't know how to.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's okay. We'll move it. I don't think that people on Zoom will see whatever you guys are seeing, okay? Because this is actually a live thing, but ignore the thing on the top. Ignore the Zoom bar, okay? So this is the chart where all the presentation for tonight is, this is the source. So this is the slide that I got from Gartner. All the other material that you see in my slides, so it's not from Gartner, okay? So Gartner only provides this slide. This is what they provide. Say, August of 2022, here are the 25 emerging technologies for this year, okay? So I'm going to go over very slightly on this because I'm going to go over each technology individually, okay? But let me just show you. So you see that the shape of is the hype chart, right? That I just described earlier. So if you notice, most of the technologies are here, okay? At the trigger and before it reaches the peak, okay? And very few, almost nothing is at the trough or the valley, and nothing over here. Now, there are a few things that you need to notice. So here, all 25 technologies are captured on this slide. By the way, this slide, you can go and find it on your own. You can go and Google it or Yahoo it, and then just say it's the thing, and you go, the best place to search for it is that go into emerging technology hype chart, and then go under image. Instead of searching for in all the text thing, go under image, and then you'll see this picture, okay? Or you can email me, I'll be glad to send it to you. So a few things that you must know this. So everything is clustered here at the beginning. Okay. And there are a few things to note. Now, this one is going to be hard to read because everything is here, but later on I'll dismantle everything and dissect it so you can see it. Okay. So there are a few things. Everything that are things that people expect, they're all there. AI is still there. For example, you see here the Causal Ai, okay, Causal Ai here. And then there's also a generative design AI. Okay, there are a few things that are new this year. Things like, for example, the concept about observability. Observability. So people say, well, what's observability? Well, you'll hear it. Just be patient and you'll hear it through the presentation. Observability, sustainability, viability, all these are very pragmatic terms that normally we don't really pay that much attention. But when you talk to technology, I'll explain what they mean, okay? So anyway, this is the chart. So this is what they started. Every year they publish this chart. But they don't give you all the nitty gritty that you're going to be seeing. So by being here or by being on the Zoom, you're going to get the thing explained to you, what all the technologies are, okay? So that's what the benefit you have. And it took me about 2-3 weeks to find all the material related to these 25 technologies. So you get a lot of benefit because I'm retired and I have the time to go search everything for you, and then everything gets offered to you, okay? Okay, so we mentioned that there are 25 technologies. So how do you group them? So there are 3 main themes for 2022, okay? One is called Evolving, Expanding, Immersive Experiences. And you see right next to it, there's a number 8. That means that out of 25 technologies, 8 of the technologies fall under this category, okay? It falls under immersive experiences, okay? The second item is that AI has been with us for the last 10 years, okay? Everybody hear about AI, different types of AI, machine learning, AI, causal AI, generative AI, everything is AI based, right? Well, the trend is that people are trying to automate AI so that you don't need to go and program it and try to use it yourself. It automatically gets done for you, okay? Second thing is that they want to speed it up because, people say, well, I don't know anything about AI. I'm not like a computer science person, but I want to use AI for business, for financial, for real estate. You can still use AI. The analogy I give is the following. You don't need to be a car mechanic, but everybody here drives a car, right? So you don't need to understand everything that, all how the car works and all that stuff. You just pump the gas and you go. So AI is the same thing. Everybody realizes the usefulness and the benefits of using AI, but not everybody needs to get a PhD in AI in order to use it. Okay, so that's the point. So the second theme then is to how to automate it and how to accelerate AI. Okay, and the third one is called the technologist delivery. So we have all these technologies. So the problem becomes like, well, how do I use it? How a non-technical person can make use of the technology. So somebody needs to give you a platform. Say, well, if you want to use this, this is the way you use it. Okay, you just make these clicks, you buy this, you download this software and you click on the button. So, but people need to offer you the technology delivered to you in a platform. Okay, so if you add up 8, 5, and 12 that you see on the screen, there are 8, 5 is 13 plus 12 is together 25 technologies. Okay, so all the 25 technologies that I'll be going over tonight fall under one of those 3 trends or themes. Okay, so let's start with the first one. The key word here in this first theme is called immersive experience. So some of you have heard me give a talk on virtual reality. Okay, virtual reality, the main characteristic is that you need to use a headset. Okay, or the other analogy I give is that if you have not used a headset, if you go to a movie theater and you watch a movie, say you're watching Tarzan of the Jungle, okay? Well, while you are in the movie theater, you are immersed in that story. You are in Africa, okay? And you're seeing Tarzan there, okay? So you are immersed in that. So you are living for those 2 hours, you are living in a experience that is outside your normal reality, okay? So that's what immersive means. Immersive means that you are into a new reality. And that's the reason why you need to wear the goggles, because it blocks whatever else is outside you or around you. Okay, and you only see the experience that what they allow you to see in the VR. Okay, so as I mentioned, that's a trend because as I mentioned, one of the next future technology is going to be the metaverse. The metaverse is made up of the physical world and the digital or the virtual world, okay? And the virtual world is an immersive experience. So that's one of the trends, is that we're moving toward more and more things that are virtual, whether you like it or not, okay? So there are 8 technologies that fall under immersive experiences. So I'm going to just mention a couple of them. I'll go over each of them, okay? One, if you see here, there are digital humans and digital twin. What that means is already something virtual, because a digital is not, that's as opposed to physical. Physical is what we're experiencing ourselves. A digital is sort of like a copy of you. That's what they call twins, okay? Digital twin of the customer or the digital humans, all those are virtual things. And you have the metaverse, you have Web3, and you have NFT. All of these are things that you open up any newspaper or any article, what you heard today, metaverse and NFTs, right? Web3. So these are the 8 technologies under the first theme. So let's go over first, what is a digital twin of the customer? I think somebody is not silenced, so maybe I see some background noise. Okay, so a digital twin. What is a digital twin? A twin, what's a twin? You have 2 people that look the same, okay? But the digital twin, as opposed to your physical you, is that you're separated. You are you, your body, your feelings, and so on. And then there's another replica of you that contains only the digital information. Like for instance, it has your accounts, all the things that you don't want to memorize, all the phone numbers of all your friends. Okay, you don't want to memorize everything. So all of that is captured in your digital twin. Okay, now in this particular technology, wouldn't it be nice for any business to know more about your customer? So, oh, by the way, this guy has this habit. He always likes to buy mystery novels or whatever. So, or this guy is really interested in soccer. So because he keeps buying books that are related to soccer. Okay, so all of that information, if you know that information, the fact that you know the digital twin, or you know about the twin of your customer, it gives you a lot of leverage, right? Because you get to know more about your customer. Okay, so that's the deal. Now, another thing that you see as a trend, and this is started with a blockchain. This is actually no different than computing. If you remember back in the 1960s and 1970s, we used to use mainframes. That means a central large computer, okay? And then they went to the mini computers, and then they went to the PCs, right? Okay, so what that thing is that everything, the trend is to go from a centralized unit to a decentralized. So the same thing, this is a thing happening, the same thing with the world are all around us. It's not only computing, but everything else. Everything becomes decentralized. Okay, so identity. So right now, before you go to a central place, they say, oh, well, you need to go apply for a social security number. So you think, okay, well, apply for it, and then we'll send you a card, and then we'll have all the information the government has it, okay, and that's it. Or you go to a bank, you open up an account. Well, the bank has the information, okay? Everything is centralized. Now, with the blockchain and all these technologies, the trend is going to the decentralized mode. It's going to be more distributed, and it's also going to be decentralized, okay? But digital human, okay, digital human is different than a digital twin. A twin is a replica of you. It has information about you. A digital human, I would say that is more like, okay, so it can be a personality or it could be a employee. Like for instance, right now, if you walk into a bank, if you have a digital human, it's not the bank teller who is a human. And it's not a answering machine that can only answer the 3 questions that you don't want to know. Because every time you want to find out the 4th question, they cannot answer, right? The automatic teller machine, right? So a digital human is a little bit more like a human. First, it's more personable. You know, it's not like a machine, so it's more friendly. And you also, I think, has some intelligence that can answer your improvised questions. It's not like a canned thing. So that's what a digital human is. So let me give you an example. So everybody knows about Einstein, all the scientists, right? So Einstein got his Nobel Prize in 1921. Okay, so 2021, which was last year, was the 100-year anniversary of him receiving the Nobel Prize. So they created a digital Einstein. Okay, what a digital Einstein is that if you go and interact with digital Einstein, it's almost like you are conversing with a copy of Einstein. It has all his biographical data, what year he was born, what was his area of specialization, like relativity and all that stuff. He knows everything, quantum mechanics. So he is able to talk to you everything related to him, to Einstein. Okay, so that's called a digital Einstein. Okay, now it's more confined to just himself, right? But that's the thing, is that you can talk to him and then you can converse with him. And if you talk to him about something that's related to him, he will be able to answer you. You know, like when was your first child born or whatever, all that stuff information, he will know, right? He said, well, you know, that equation that you had on the relativity, you know, what's the E equal mc squared, you know, all that stuff, he'll be able to answer you. So that's a digital human example, okay? Okay, internal talent marketplace. Okay, so what this is actually very simple. It's sort of like a automated HR. But HR, not just for the benefits, but basically it says, okay, well, right now we have a new project that's just starting. That's going to be related to, who knows, AI. And then what it will do is that you will go through the database of the company and then find out all the people's background. So, oh, you know, so-and-so has a PhD in machine learning. Okay, maybe he can help us, okay? And then there's another person who is more like a business person, okay? But he can also help because this is a project that involves not only technology, but also business, okay? So the internal talent marketplace is sort of like an internal tool that helps the company match the projects and the needs of the company with the people and the talent that exists within the company. Okay, so that's what the thing is. Okay, the metaverse. So I've given a almost hour and a half or 2 hour presentation on the metaverse. So tonight I'm not going to, spend all this time about explaining all the metaverse, but you can also watch that YouTube video, or maybe in the future, I'll give a second presentation on the metaverse. Okay, but the metaverse, just read the middle of the slide, is a virtual reality. So first of all, you need some help with some virtual stuff. It's not everything is real world. It's a combination. As I mentioned, it's a mixed reality. So you have physical world and virtual world combined. It combines aspects of AR, okay, augmented reality, virtual reality. It also uses cryptocurrencies like blockchain to exchange transactions, okay? And it is applicable to everything. It's applicable to a workplace. It's applicable to game, like entertainment, like playing games, okay? And it's applicable to a workplace as well. So if you're going to have like meetings, as I mentioned, right now, for instance, in the current world, you say, okay, log into Zoom and then listen to Bill give his presentation, okay? Well, in the metaverse, it's not going to be you. It's going to be your avatar. The avatar is your representative, okay? Just like, for instance, right now, if you go into WeChat, you have a symbol that represents you. It can be your photo, it could be a flower or whatever. Well, when you log in, that's your representation. Well, the avatar is your representation inside the virtual world, okay? Now, how that avatar is created is up to you. You can make a copy of yourself there. Well, this is, I think, what I look like. I want to be myself in the virtual world. Or you can say, I want to be shown as a Superman, and I can fly. All that stuff is all up to you. But avatar is your representation. Okay, I see some questions, but I will wait till the end. Okay, so just write down your questions and we'll answer. Okay, so that's the metaverse. So I gave a talk, an hour and a half talk on the metaverse. The term metaverse, it came from a novel that was written in 1992 called Snow Crash, okay? And they mentioned that word, the metaverse, okay? So here I mentioned it says that you traverse the metaverse using avatars. Avatars is your representative, okay, in the virtual world. But it is collective and it's virtual. It is virtual, so it's not like something you see around you. Okay, so it is a virtual world, but it's a combination of real world and fake or virtual world. They call it the virtual world. Okay, so that's as much as I'm going to say. You are welcome to look into the metaverse presentation. I think I gave it only this year, so it's very new. It's only, I gave it in February, around February. So all the material is current. It's not like 5 years old, okay? Okay, another word that people are hearing every day right now is NFTs, non-fungible tokens. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of engineer friends who ask me, what is an NFT, and so on. So let me just spend a couple minutes explaining what an NFT is, okay? So first, let's talk about what are the characteristics of an NFT. Okay, so an NFT, okay, maybe let me just go directly into the next slide by giving you examples and contrasts between what is a fungible versus what's a non-fungible, okay? As a matter of fact, the way I would make it easier to understand is that if you don't know what fungible means, okay, because you're an engineer, so well, I never heard about the word before, thing came out. You can swap the word. It's not exchangeable. Instead of fungible, use the word, it's non-exchangeable. Okay? So let me give you an example. Something that's fungible is like, for instance, if you have a $10 bill or a $100 bill, I give you $100 bills, you can break into 5 $20 bills, or you can break into 100 $1 bills. All of those are equivalent, okay? It has the same value to you. But if you're a non-fungible, let's say you give your wife or your girlfriend a 2-carat diamond ring, okay? Now you say, well, okay, I lost the ring and I want to replace it. You're not going to find another one that's exactly the same as the one you gave, because there are plenty of 2-carat diamond rings, but every ring is unique. See, you remember the thing about the diamonds, the 5 C's, the cut, the color, you know, the carat and all that stuff. Well, they're not the same. So they all may be 2-carat diamonds, but depending on the quality and the cut and everything, it's not the same. It's not like you can say, well, let me just get another 2-carat diamond and just give it to you. It's the same, because every ring is unique. Okay, so they are not interchangeable, even though they are the same thing, but the value are different. Okay, so another slide where it shows the difference. Cash or even cryptocurrencies, they're all fungible. That means that you can exchange. If I give you a $20 bill, or I give you 4 $5 bills, it's the same to you. It's just has the same value to you. But the diamond or art, the art, if you have a real piece of work of art, that drawing that you have, there's not another one that's the same. People can keep drawing the same thing, but they are not the same, right? So the same thing with houses. And that's why people use blockchain technology, is because there are some unique properties that you register to say, oh, this house is yours. You know, the house that is located on this location, that's yours. Okay, and there's not a second owner for the house, for your house. You are the sole owner. Okay, super app. Actually, just from the word, you sort of get the feeling of what the super app is. So you have a lot of, right now, everybody who has a cell phone knows that you have so many applications, right? Every day there's a new application. So, oh, do you have this application? Like for instance, in China, right now, the most popular app is that, you know, because of the COVID test, they give you a color code. It's sort of like the traffic light, right? It's the red, orange, or green. So if you don't get a test, your cell phone is going to be red. That means that you cannot go anywhere. Okay, so that's an app. So there are so many apps. So people say, well, can I combine them into one? So that's what a super app. Super app means that you use one app and you can do multiple functions. That's a very simple explanation. Okay, so WeChat, I think, well, WeChat, they say, is the one of the most frequently used apps. Everybody uses a WeChat. Okay, Web3. So when I gave the presentation on the metaverse, there was another name for metaverse. People say, oh, it's also called Web3. Okay, because they say that the metaverse is the 3-dimensional view of the internet. Okay, and the characteristics is that, again, as I mentioned in the R1, is that it's decentralized. It goes from a centralized to a decentralized. Okay, so what is Web 3.0? It's the 3.0 means it's third generation of the web. So Web 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. 3.0, it becomes more decentralized. Okay, and also it is compared to Web 1 and Web 2. Web 1 was more like a thing where it's actually the content. Okay, the Web 2.0 is more like connecting and sharing, and the Web 3 is actually more about the the interpretation and the semantics of it. Okay, so that is moving, and also is moving from a centralized approach to a decentralized approach. Okay, so we have covered the first theme. Let's go to the second theme: accelerated AI automation. Very simple. Two keywords in this theme. One is automation, and one is accelerating. And in the middle, you have AI. Everybody heard about AI. Okay, AI is everything is that using machine intelligence to aid the human intelligence. Okay, so there are 5 technologies. 2 of them, for instance, if you say, since it's AI, you heard about Causal Ai. Causal means that there's everybody in Chinese, you say 因果. There's a cause and there's an effect. You know, a certain cause causes a certain effect, right? So Causal AI, it can trace what's the reason, and then therefore it can predict the outcome. Okay, Causal AI. Generative design AI. That's a AI assisted design. In my previous life, I used to be CAD, computer aided design. They use the computer to help you doing chip design. Okay, now people today, everybody uses AI. Whatever field you are in, you use AI. Okay, so generative design, that's what it is. And then you have foundation models and autonomic systems. So I'll go over and explain what is an autonomic system compared to what's an automated system. Okay, and then some of these are more IT related, like people who are not in computer science. Well, what is code generation? Okay, code generation is that before, in the old days, you used to write a language that you want to communicate with your computer. You use a high level language, and then a compiler will take that language and transform it into a machine language that the machine can understand. Okay. So that's code generation, means generate the code that the machine can understand. But all of that is also becoming AI driven now. So that's called machine learning. Code generation using machine learning techniques. So autonomic systems. So these are the characteristics. Number 1 is that they are self-managing. Second thing, that they are changeable. Okay, that means that you can alter the behavior. Okay, so a lot of the hardware that you will be seeing in the future, like robots and drones, people want those hardware to be able to adapt to the condition and the environment around them. So something around them changes, they want to be able to change their behavior. Okay, so that's what autonomic systems mean. Now, there's a drawback to autonomic systems, and that is because they keep changing. They can self-learn and self-change. Sometimes they're not predictable because you don't know how the thing is going to change after. Okay, it learns more about the environment, it changes. Well, since you did not program it, it's not a human program thing, and then you don't know how the machine is going to change their behavior. Sometimes it may give you a bad outcome because you cannot predict what it is. Okay, so it has some drawbacks. Like any technology, it has a benefits and it also has drawbacks. So these slides just show you the 3 things. Automated means that before it used to be manual, everything used to be done by the humans. Now you can program it, and you can do a hardware, make a hardware that can do the function. That's automated. Something used to be manual, now can be automated. Okay, autonomous means that the behavior can be changed, okay? But the way you program it is still fixed, okay? That means that the human still has to intervene to alter the behavior, okay? And the last one is the autonomic, is that it self-learns and it self-changes. So that's the 3 layers about systems, okay? So we're moving from level 1 to level 3. Just like remember right now, like autonomous driving, you have you have 5 categories, right? You have from software assisted driving to completely self-driving, which we're not there yet, right? So you have 3 different layers. So the same thing for autonomic systems. We're gradually moving into autonomic. Started with automated, that's assisted, it's called machine assisted thing, it's called the automated. Autonomous means that it's a little bit more automatic and you can change. And then the last one is that the machine can do it by themselves. You don't need to, human does not need to intervene and change it. Okay. Excuse me? Well, if you label it autonomic, you cannot change it. Everything that does by itself. It's sort of like you create a robot and says, well, the robot needs to know by itself. When you develop that robot, everything it does it by itself. So when you reach that level, the human is already out of the loop. Right. Yeah. So maybe you don't want to go to autonomic, right? So let's go back to that one. So maybe you want to go to only the second level, where you say, well, I want to, what's the situation? And then I want to be the one that implemented. So as I mentioned in my last point about the slide, is that with every benefit, there's also a liability. So if you have completely fully automated, you may have some bad consequences. I mean, this is the same thing with AI. You know that there's a thing now called open AI. The people like Elon Musk and some of the people with a lot of money, they say, we don't want AI to just go rampant. We want to be able to control it. Because if one day the machines, they can build themselves, the robot can build their own robot, they can program themselves. People say, well, the robots are going to say, well, what are humans good for? You know, let's terminate all the humans, right? So you have a very good point. So that's the thing. So it's really upon human wisdom to determine what degree you want to be able to do. Fully automatic doesn't mean that is the best. Sometimes it actually can be negative. Okay, but it's a good question, very good observation. Okay, foundation models. This is something that if people who are interested, right now, this is what Stanford AI Lab is focusing on, foundation models. Foundation model, as the word means, foundation means that you develop a technology that is very generic, okay? It's just based on data. But the application at the end could be changing, okay? So it's a foundation. But then what you build on top of it can be changed. Okay, so you build a model, say, okay, well, I build a foundation model, and then I can apply it to engineering, or I can apply it to business, or can I apply it to finance, or I can apply it to manufacturing. Okay. So right now, this is what Stanford AI Lab is focusing. There's every year, like I watch some of the latest YouTube videos from this year, 2022, from Stanford Lab. They all have this workshop on foundation models. So if you want to learn more about foundation models, you can just go and type in foundation models, Stanford AI Lab, okay? Okay, generative design AI. So I want to mention in this slide, there are 2 kinds of AI, which are actually different things, but the name sounds the same, but they are actually 2 different things, okay? One is called generative AI. Generative AI just means that they are AI used to generate new data. For example, many often, right now, we don't have sufficient data. So you can synthesize data, okay? So the AI generates data for you. So that's called generative AI. But generative design AI is different. Generative design AI means that you use AI to help you do something. So it's like computer-aided design. So if you don't want to do design, you want the computer to help you. Okay. Well, AI-assisted design. That's what generative design AI means. It's different than generative AI. Generative AI means that it generates data. Okay. Well, this one means that it assists you. Okay, so this technology is actually being used in many areas where it requires a lot of very time-consuming things, like, for instance, pharmaceuticals, creating new drugs. Okay, a lot of these type of things. Before, if you want to come out with a drug, it will take 10, 20 years because you have to get it approved. Okay, everything related to humans, that it has to be approved, and it takes many, many years. But now, with the AI, you can create and iterate very, very fast. You can experiment 100 by 100 combinations. You have, say, 100 material A and 100 material B type, and you want to combine and say, what's the optimum? Well, before, you do one by one, and you check it out. And it takes years and years to do it. Right now, with the AI technology, it's very fast. As a matter of fact, you know that the COVID-19, the mRNA technology is actually something that is a clear example. Where before, the vaccines used to be developed based on the mutation of whatever the disease was, right? So they say, okay, let's take that and they analyze it and see what we can go find something that is counteracting that thing. Well, right now, the mRNA technology, do not have to know anything about what the COVID-19 is. Okay. So that, and then you can do it within 1 year, they came out with the vaccine. If you do it the previous way, it will take 5 years to come out with the vaccine. Okay, so that's a lot of advantage with AI. Okay, machine learning code generation. Let me see how I'm doing. So I want to speed up the thing because I need to wrap up everything by 8:30. So this one is actually more for the people who are in computer science. I already explained what code generation means. That is that you go and transfer from a high-level language to a machine language. And right now you can also leverage machine learning techniques. Okay, instead of writing compilers. Okay, so theme 3. This is the third theme, is that you have all these new technologies, like 25 new technologies. How are you going to deliver it to the average person? Okay, so there are two things. If you read the thing in red, these are the 12 technologies that are under this category. There are 12 of them. There's 3x4 matrix here, right? So you see some commonality. Number one, there are 2 items that are really cloud-based. That means that a lot of things are still moving to the cloud because that's where the compute power and so on and the large storage is based. Okay. There are also some new terms that before 2022, it would never appeared in the technology chart, like items like observability, sustainability, viability. All these are new things, new concepts. Okay, they are more pragmatic. That means that they are more practical, but they did not exist before. Okay, the other thing is that in order to do delivery for an average person, you have 2 things. You need to have a platform that you can deliver. And then you have to have a architecture that can accommodate the changes. Okay, so those are the things I wrote down in red. So I'm going to go faster because I need to wrap up in 5 to 6 minutes. Okay, so cloud data. So first of all, ecosystems. If you look at what I circled in red, is that a ecosystem, data ecosystem, is comprised of data sources, data storage, data mining, data analytics, and data visualization. So that's what an ecosystem made up of. And right now, a lot of this stuff is moving to the cloud because you have so many things that you need to do. it's very hard to build a ecosystem right there and there at the edge. So you need to rely on the cloud. So this is a cloud-based thing. I'll make that thing up without spending too much time on it, is that how you apply machine learning and AI technologies to the financial, to the business side of things. So we always talk about, automating manufacturing or automating technology. Well, you need to automate the businesses, the banks, the financial sector as well. So this is nothing more than applying machine learning techniques into the financial world. Okay, so you can make better trade-offs. What happens if I do this? Well, what will be the impact on my bottom line in terms of the profit if I use this? For instance, that's a simple example for business. Okay, if I implement this approach, what will be the impact to the bottom line of my company? Okay. Okay, cloud sustainability. We'll talk about cloud. The other new term is sustainability. Sustainability actually has been around for many, many years. I taught a course on sustainability concepts about 10, 12 years ago. Okay, so for people who are not familiar with the word sustainable, well, right now actually it's very current because right now, because of the climate change, everybody is knowing it's either a drought or it's a flood or it's an extreme heat or extreme cold. Okay, everything is extreme. That's what extreme weather, extreme climate. So the reason is because people have not been paying enough attention to sustainability. So sustainability just means this. If you look at the bottom of this chart, it has three pillars. One is social, one is environmental, and one is economic. So sustainability means a balance between all three. So in the past, all the businesses focus only what? On the economic. People say, well, this will make me money, or this will make me more money. So people, at least that's the approach, okay? But they're forgetting about the impact on the environment, for example. So people say, well, gasoline is cheaper than doing renewable energy, so why don't I just keep using gasoline, okay? But that's because you're not trying to strive for a balance between what's the impact of that using that technology into the environment and what's the impact on the humans. That's the social aspect of it. So people need to worry about all three, because if you're focusing only on the profit, then you no longer have a planet to live on because you destroy planet Earth. It's all polluted and the weather is terrible. It's too hot, too cold, flooding, drought. Okay, all of those are caused by human created, conditions, right? Too much CO2 and so on. Okay, computational storage means coupling computing and storage. So you do the computing where the storage of the data is. So you're trying to merge the two. So it's almost like the reason why people want to minimize cloud computing is because you don't want to keep sending the data all across the cloud and then waiting for the data to come back. You want to have the computation where the data resides. Okay, so that's computational storage. So you can save a lot of time. You can reduce the latency. That means that the time it takes to go and come back, and you can save a lot of energy. Okay, another thing that everybody is into, actually this is at the bottom of the hype chart, is the cybersecurity. This is where most of the companies in Silicon Valley, a lot of companies working on cybersecurity, right? Because people are afraid that their data is not well protected. Okay, there's a lot of privacy that is lost. So cybersecurity. Well, in order to do cybersecurity, there is a very complicated thing. So if you look at across the chart, I'm going to show it here on the thing, is that you have cybersecurity framework, identity, how to protect it, how to detect fraud, how to respond if they discover something, and how do you recover. All of that is under the security framework. So if you look at, there's so many startups in Silicon Valley, they're all working on cybersecurity because we are living in an era of data and how you protect the data. as cybersecurity. Okay. Another concept is observability. Okay. So if you look at the pie chart here, is that you want to make sure that things are transparent. So it's very important to be able to observe the data. And there are many aspects of it, okay? Data visualization, data versioning, data accessibility, data testing, classification, okay? Ethics, and so on. And metadata. Metadata is the raw data. So observability, data observability means all of that thing. So people are start worrying about not only data security, but where the data is observable as well. So this is one of the new trends in 2022, is that it's observability. Okay, risk governance. So I'm going to go into gear 3 because I need to wrap up in 5 minutes. Okay, so risk governance. So people need to monitor what's the risk. If I do something, what's the risk that I incur? Okay, so there are risk-based governance that create different models and depending on it. Also, who should be managing that risk? Okay, who are the best people to manage the risk? And also make sure that the risk is digitized. One of the general concepts is that we're all moving towards digitalization. That means things are more based on data. Okay, so all of this. So I don't have the time to go over into the details. Okay. The other thing with cloud platforms, so we talk about delivery of the technology, is that people use clouds. Okay, so everybody heard about SaaS and PaaS and infrastructure as a service, right? So for different verticals, that means for different domains, there are different services that are being provided. So for example, if you want to go and provide financial things, everything is related to that aspect. If you want to provide medical care, okay, everything that you see here is related, how you provide service in the medical area, the doctors, the data, how you're sharing the data between doctors and hospitals and so on. So this is there's a vertical, that means a specific application area, okay? So industry cloud platforms, they are different based on the different industries. So biomedical is different than financial. Financial is different than engineering. Engineering is different than data. Okay. Okay, minimum viable architecture. So let's talk about what a viable means. Viable means that what is the minimum requirement for you to release a product? So I'm going to quickly jump into the next slide. One is that you say, well, let me just provide something to the customer. That's a minimum. But is that doing everything that the customer wants? It may not be. Viable is a combination of the two. You need to combine the two spheres. What is the minimum that people would accept, and what is something that is acceptable? So this sort of summarizes, ship the simplest, fastest solution that solves a problem. And then the better and the cheaper version can come back in the future iterations, okay? But you don't want to just throw something that's garbage. So if it's useless, you don't want to just throw it because it's a minimum. It has to be minimum, but it also has to be viable. That means that it has to perform a certain function. Otherwise, it's useless, okay? So a picture that shows the difference, okay? A minimum may be something that is at the bottom. It's the cheapest, you know, it doesn't cost too much and so on. But does it mean that it meets does it meet the minimum criteria in terms of usability, in terms of reliability and functionality? So a minimum viable is more like this slice. It has to meet a certain criteria. It has to be useful. It's not just a minimum but doesn't serve you any purpose. So a minimum viable is maybe this slice, okay? Observability, okay, observability here. This is the definition of observability. It means that from the output of a system, you can infer what's the state, the internal state of the system. So if you detect something that's wrong, for instance, if your car just breaks down, okay, Well, from there you can say, well, let me see what happened. Is it my tires, or is it my battery, or oil that is missing? Okay, so from the external, you can detect what's the internal state of your system. Okay, that's what observability means. And the usefulness of that is that whenever you're developing a product, you want to monitor the development and get the feedback at every stage. Okay, so this is observability-driven development, is that you can see a lot of feedback loops. So this is a development cycle: plan it, design it, develop it, test it, deploy it, and operate it. But you have all these feedback loops that at every stage you have the thing observable. Okay, we're actually getting there also. I'm finishing up. Open telemetry. So what's telemetry? Telemetry is just collection of data and also transmission of that data to a central location. That's what definition of telemetry is. So open telemetry means that you are collecting all this information and then you feed it into a system that will tell you what's going on. Okay, this is the last one. So I'm actually going to wrap up by 8:30. Actually, it took longer than I expected, because going over 25 technologies in 1 hour is not a trivial task. Okay, platform engineering. So as I mentioned, in order to deliver all the technology to the customer, you need to have a platform, right? Just like, for example, if you want to go from point A to point B, you need to have a car. If you don't have a car, you know, all the technologies could be the tires, could be your engines, your AC in the car, your sound system, and so on. But you need to have a car. The car is the platform. Okay. So platform engineering allows you the delivery of things. Okay. So this is almost my last slide. So what do you do with all the technologies that we just mentioned? Okay. You take all the 25 technologies. So if I were working in a company and people say, okay, well, Bill just presented 25 new technologies. And then your boss said, well, tell me, what do you think about them? What our company should do about it, okay? So you take all the candidates of all 25 technologies, and then you ask yourself some questions. Say, well, do I care about this technology? Or is this something that our company needs to use? Let's say you own a real estate company. So, well, some of these other things are not applicable to me, but some of them are, okay? So you need to go and ask yourself some questions. And also, what's the level of maturity of technology? If the technology is too new and it will take another 5 years to become useful, then you can say, I'll wait for 2 years before our company should jump into it, right? So you need to ask yourself, what is the technology being used for? What are the benefits that you get or your company gets out of using the technology? So you need to do analysis of all this. It's not like say, okay, here are the 25 technologies, you need to use all of them. Maybe you use 3, okay? And the other one, maybe in another 3 years, I use 2 more. And then all the other ones are not applicable to me. That could be a very valid situation. Okay, last slide. So tonight, I presented the 2022 hype chart. It had 25 technologies and all organized along 3 main themes that I already went over. If you notice, this is sort of like a summary. We're moving toward more and more toward a virtual world. So we're moving from the physical gradually more and more into the virtual side. You can look by looking at some of the technology like digital humans, digital twins, and so on. Okay. Another thing that is sort of like a cause to alarm, because this is something that Gartner did. So me as a third-party independent, user or customer, here are some of my observations. There are some things that are concerned about the hype chart. Okay, number one is that if you compare 2022 hype chart with last year's 2021 hype chart, there are only 3 technologies that are on both. So because every year they can only select 25, they don't want to carry, and right now the pace of the technology is so fast. People say, well, I cannot put 50 or 75 things on one chart because it's not manageable. It's the thing about the big data, too much data. So people say, well, there's only 25. But what you lose is the following, is that if you look at it, most of the technologies are focused on the left side of the curve. They're all just in the technology trigger or the rising part of it. very few that talk about what happens after 3 years or what happens after 5 years. Well, what's the status of big data today? What's the status of 5G today? It already disappeared from the radar. So that's an alarm thing because you're trying to deal with too much data and too many technologies. Okay. The other thing is that you see that things are moving not only more to a virtual, they're also moving to a more pragmatic things. You know, it's observability, sustainability, viability. All these are new things that before in previous years did not come out. Okay. But I think my own basic concern is that we still need to do both. We should not focus only on the latest and the newest that just get into the technology trigger. We should monitor them as well, because we need to know what happened to the technologies that were in the 2020 hype chart. Where are they now? What happened to them? You know, like data fabric and some lot of other things. You know, they sort of disappeared. So where are they? So we need to have maybe it could be two different charts. One is the new things that just came up, is focused on the left side of the curve. And the other one is to more like tracking everything since 5 years ago. That sort of could be like a compromise between the amount of data and so on. Okay, so that's it. One advertisement for people who are here and people who are online is that my next talk, you know, so usually I give one talk per month. So my next talk is going to be on photonics. So it's going to be on October 19. Photonics is the science of light. So one more slide on it. So photonics, it comes from the word photon. So in the 20th century is the era of the electron, like everybody knows about electronics, right? Well, the 21st century, we're beginning only the first 20 years. So we still have 80 years to go. It's going to be the era of photonics. Everybody knows that the light is much faster than the electrons, right? Okay, so anyway, that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a wonderful talk. If you're like me, I'm new to many of these terms. And whenever I see this weird shaped curve, I always wonder what it really means. And looking at the curve is one thing, but learning this knowledge from a good lecturer is much, much better.
Specific thing related to coordination.
Sorry about that. Our main computer just had a thermal shutdown, which happened really, really tiny.
What's there is only one orange color in the like other group.
Okay, on Monday of this week, Gartner gave a presentation. Okay, so they presented only one. So out of the 25, they only presented two. And then each of them have only one slide. Now the slides that I presented were all from me. So what I did was I took the fishbone, if you call it, the fishbone of the chart, and then I put the meter on it. All the material, all the slides that you see today, they're all mine. They're not related. But the 25 technologies, they did the research and they come up with the 25 technologies. And we came out with the 3 things. And everything else is my
my own personal. All right. So by the way, if you need like the pie chart or some of the slides, you can send me an email. I'll be glad to send it. Don't ask me to give you all the 55 slides, but you know, if you are interested in certain topics, I can send you any material. I can send it to you, but I don't want to just keep the whole 55 slides. All right. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Well, out of all these 25 topics you presented, which one are you most interested in?
Which am I more interested?
Yeah.
Right now, I didn't really do analysis, but I would say that right now the one that I'm focusing more personally is the metaverse.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the reason is because everybody is sort of like more interested in that. My focus is more around the education. Is that how do you, first of all, how do you teach about what is the metaverse? You know, get more applications on the metaverse. And also, how do you use metaverse techniques in teaching? Okay, for example, using VR or using holograms when you teach. It's just an example. So right now, I'm interested in that, but that's a personal. Because I'm retired, so I'm no longer working for a company. So I now say, well, I'm interested in this one because you know I can make more money using this particular technology. Okay.
Dabble into
No, I don't dabble. I've given seminars on Bitcoin, on cryptocurrencies, and NFTs.
but you don't touch it.
But I don't touch it because I'm already retired. And I have enough money for the rest of my life, but I don't want to squander it away. So I don't want to say, okay, well, I already saved all my retirement money, and then suddenly, after I invest in something that is, you know, like emerging technology, I say, oh, well, now I lost 1/3 of my portfolio. so that's only a personal thing. But I would say that in general, if you are interested in the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and so on, they're all, this is a little bit like going to Las Vegas. It is there's a risk. For everything that you do, there's inherent risk, right? So you can also make money. So I'm not saying that you cannot make money. You actually, a lot of people made a lot of money. And then a lot of people also lost a lot of money. So it's no different than the stock market. Oh yeah, there are a lot of scams as well. So by the way, so if people really want to get into it, you want to be careful because there are some legitimate cryptocurrencies. You know, if you look and say, okay, well, top 10 cryptocurrencies, Ethereum and Bitcoin, and a lot of other ones, and then there are also some that are really fraud. They just want to say, okay, just invest in my stuff. And by the way, the backup for my cryptocurrency is some mine in Venezuela, because it happens to be the owner of the mine or whatever. They just want to get some money.
Yeah, those are called rug pulls.
Yeah. So, but I'm not advocating either for or against. I think everybody needs to make a call. I mean, this is cryptocurrencies. I would say the closest I would draw the analogy is like investing in stocks. You can make a lot of money. You also can also lose money. So that's a personal thing. So I'm not going to give you advice. I also, by the way, I also taught finance. I talk about the stock market and also about what they call sector rotation, the movement of the economy with the condition of the economy. So I taught that. Okay. Any other comments? Any comments from the field? Everybody's already signed out to get there.
No, they're still here. They're
Okay.
happy. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We posted your
Yes,
email.
you have a comment? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so hopefully tonight, so if you come here, at least you heard about all the new technologies. And then the other thing is that what I think about some of them. And also my main concern is that whenever we're talking about the hype chart, We need to always seek balance. If you focus only on the new things, the latest and the newest, greatest thing, but they don't track it anymore. You know, like for example, Bitcoin can go up to thousands of dollars, and then finally it comes down, and you lose $100. So the thing is that it's not only important to be aware of the new technology, but you need to also monitor. You need to track them over a course of time. Okay, so that's also very important. So that's a general observation about anything. Okay. Well, thank you for coming. And hopefully you learned something tonight.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And let's thank our volunteers and staff today. Just very quickly, tomorrow we have a entrepreneur talk, fireside chat with Mr. Imran. So it is an online event. If you're interested, please check out our Eventbrite page. Thank you.